7 weeks down, 10 weeks to go, but a much-needed bye week on deck for the Detroit Lions. I'm Jacob Seuss, and this is the Lions Game Plan. Once again, joined by Mike Payton from A to Z Sports. Mike, the Lions coming off possibly their most impressive win of the season. I say that because going up against a 5-1 Bucs team, one of the better teams in the NFC, depleted on defense. The defense played maybe their best game of the season. I mean, it's hard to top what they did in Baltimore earlier this season, but man, Monday night was a lot of fun. Shutting the Bucs down 9 points for a defense that at this time last week we talked about that this game could potentially end up being a shootout, and it was anything but.
Yeah, I mean, just unbelievable. A bunch of guys, a ragtag group of misfits that no one's ever heard of, got out there and just people are calling it the Legion of Whom right now. Like it's insane what they were able to do. And I think just going back to their regular roots, not trying to kind of overthink things like they did against the Chiefs. I mean, that was the way to go. What a game plan from Calvin Shepard.
Every time the Bucs had a chance to get momentum, it felt like the defense came up huge. Amik Robertson with the forced fumble, Arthur Maulet with the pick that he just took it away. I mean, like you said, and you look at Arthur Maulet, a guy that most Lions fans probably haven't heard of. Maybe before the ESPN broadcast said his name for the first time. What does this say about Kelvin Shepard? I mean, coming into a groove here in his first season as the defensive coordinator, to put a game plan like that together with all of those players either hurt or suspended, the secondary lacking those big names, and to shut Baker Mayfield and company down for most of the evening.
I mean, I can tell you right now that there are some teams who are watching Monday Night Football thinking maybe this guy's our next head coach. Maybe the Tennessee Titans had an eye on him. Maybe the Cleveland Browns are looking at him. I don't think that Kelvin Shepard is long for this world as a defensive coordinator with the Lions. I think he is going to be somebody that could be a head coach before you know it. And it's been a long time coming. We've kind of always known that this guy was going to be such a great coach, and at this point, I think he's better than Aaron Glenn. I mean, it's happened so fast. Somehow they upgraded that defensive coordinator, and this was supposed to be the thing, and John Morton. These were supposed to be the things that were going to kill this team, and they don't look dead to me. I mean, they just look pretty great, and just to get the pressure dialed up and the linebackers working and the guys in the backfield covered just long enough, and they took the big play away. It was just everything that you could possibly think. It was perfect. It was perfect game plan.
And it's crazy for a game of that magnitude that the Lions won handily, that the loudest Ford Field may have been all night was off a pass deflection in the first half. Of course, that was 3rd and 3. Aleem McNeil coming up with the deflection. And Ford Field just erupted when he made that play. To get him back, of course, one of the fan favorites, everything it took for him to work back from a torn ACL. He's such a huge part of the dynamic of that defense. What did you think about McNeil's first game action this season? I mean, coming into it, you thought, he probably wouldn't play a ton of the game. Maybe on a snap count, he blew that out of the water, and he looked really good doing it.
Yeah, the SWAT was the big thing that kind of got everybody crazy, but you could see his presence being felt immediately. He was pushing guys. He was walking those guards back and getting pressure on Baker Mayfield, and it allowed for one-on-one opportunities because they were also trying to double Aiden too, and that's why kind of everybody went out there and got a sack in this game. There were 5 sacks, and Tyrus Wheat, a guy that nobody's ever heard of, had a sack and a half in this thing. It just he makes such a big difference to what this team is able to do, and they were already pretty good at getting pressure. Now they're just they could potentially be unstoppable, especially if they decide to add somebody at the deadline. It's a really good time for this defense.
And going into this one, I thought the offense would play really well and the defense would just do enough. It turned out being the opposite. The defense played really well and the offense just did enough. At times they were able to move the ball. Other times they lacked consistency. But Jahmyr Gibbs had the best game he's had all season. Over 200 yards combined both receiving and rushing. Had that 78-yard touchdown run. Mike, is this the best we've seen from Gibbs? It feels like every time I think that he's able to hit another level continually.
Yeah, I think that was probably his best game. Just he couldn't be stopped. He got into space. They designed it so he could get into space, and every time he did, he was juking guys. You saw the first play, his first pass of the game. He juked out two guys, and just those were the plays he was doing all night. That was what he was able to do: get in space, make guys miss, big chunk yard plays. And that's what this team loves about him. And that's, everybody's wondering why they're not seeing a whole lot of David Montgomery lately. Well, it's because Gibbs has just been unreal. That how do you take him out? And when he's in the game, the offense is just so much more dynamic than it is when Montgomery's in. But Montgomery still had a few good plays in this game too. But Gibbs is the man.
That was going to be my next question, because that's something we've seen of more as the year has gone on. Besides that Cincinnati game, David Montgomery has been less involved with the offense than we've seen in previous years. But like you said, I mean, how do you take Jahmyr Gibbs off the field at this point going into the bye week? What is Montgomery's role now that those two are less of a tandem and more than a starter and a backup than we've seen the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think he's just going to become more of that power back. I think using him down in the red zone would be more useful for them. Even though you saw Gibbs in the red zone on Monday, he was able to spin out and get that touchdown, and that was a good looking run. And he can also kind of be sort of a change of pace. Everything's so fast with Gibbs, you can kind of slow things down a little bit more and make things happen with Montgomery, and then the short passing game, which is what they've been using him a lot in. So he's not going away. I don't think that's should be anything anyone's worried about. If you're a fantasy owner of David Montgomery, you might want to bench him because he's probably
me.
not putting up the numbers that you're used to,
Raising my hand here. I love him with the red zone carries, and unfortunately, Gibbs has made it hard to keep him in the lineup. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. It's probably going to continue to be that way. Gibbs is just putting on a. I mean, if he keeps doing games like that, he's Offensive Player of the Year candidate for sure.
Yeah. So here we are headed into the bye week. I mean, this was such a huge win momentum-wise, such a big difference, between 5-2 and 4-3 headed into the bye week. Such a huge difference between first place in the NFC North to right behind the Packers, just from a feel-good momentum standpoint. Obviously, there's still so much of this season to go, but now headed into a bye week, hopefully going to get some of those defenders back. What is the state of this team after 7 games? Are they where you thought they would be? Are they better, maybe a little worse? Especially in an NFC where it feels like there's a lot of good teams in the NFC, maybe not one single great team, which could benefit in the Lions' favor.
Yeah, this is pretty much where you wanted them to be. That everyone knew that this was going to be a tough start with the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bucks. This was and Packers too. This was supposed to be a tough start, and then the Lions. You wanted them to at least be over 500 at this point, and they're sitting at 5-2, which is the best, second best, or tied for the best record in the NFC right now. Even though the Packers have only one loss. I don't know, a tie. It's weird to me, but. I think this is probably you should feel good about this team where they're at right now, and they've got this is a big week also for the NFC North. I got to mention this because while the Lions aren't playing, the Packers have to go play the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers. There's some big storylines attached there. Lamar Jackson looks like he may be coming back to play the Bears this week, and then the Chargers take on the Vikings. I think there's a good chance all 3 North teams that are playing this week could lose, and if that happens, then that's a big deal for the Lions.
Yeah, to gain some ground in the division when you're not playing, coming off a big win yourself would be big time. And it's also a chance for this team to hopefully get a little healthier. The next time we see the Lions will be a week from Sunday back home against the Vikings. Mike, is there anyone who we didn't see this past Monday who you expect to be back? Obviously, besides Brian Branch, who had just his 1-game suspension.
Yeah, I think you'll see Terry and Arnold be back after the bye. Malcolm Rodriguez is slated to have his clock started once they get back to practice next week. I don't know if he'll necessarily play against the Vikings, but he should be back pretty soon too. There's also Marcus Davenport is going to be able to be brought off the IR after this week too. DJ Reed, after they play the Vikings, he can come back. So November is going to be huge. They can get back a ton of guys. Maybe Josh Pascal too. Ahmed Hassanin is looking really good in all these videos he keeps
Yeah.
posting. He could be back soon. It's big. It's really big. They could wind up being fully healthy when they get back to the end of November and Thanksgiving. I mean, Thanksgiving could be a fully healthy, fully stocked team.
Which is, I mean, the total opposite of last year, because this is when things started to go downhill and, the injury bug just kept getting worse and worse. So to be able to get healthy for the stretch run would be huge for this team. Headed into the off week after 7 games, what are your biggest concerns with this team? The record looks good. They've played really good in most of their games. Obviously, the Packers and the Chiefs game had their separate issues. What's your biggest concern for this team with 10 games to go here in the regular season?
I think for me, the biggest thing is you got to capitalize on these turnovers. So far, they've forced 17 of them. That's counting turnover on downs. They're doing really good at getting the ball out of the opponent's hand. They've only scored 4 touchdowns on those 17 takeaways. You got to be better than that. And there were other ones where they punted and then missed field goals, and it's just you got to capitalize on these turnovers that you get, especially again when you play against teams like the Eagles and the Packers. That's a good team still too, and you're gonna face some stiff competition. You got to make sure that you're able to score on them when you get the opportunity to score on them. And especially when it comes in the playoffs, that has to be priority number 1. You get the ball, you got to score.
Biggest surprise through the first 7 games? Is there any player or anything about this team that maybe when we did our preview before week 1 that you would have not expected so far through the first 7 games?
I did not expect Al-Quadin Muhammad to be this good. I don't think anybody did. 28 pressures and 5 sacks. Like who could have seen this coming? We knew when he got re-signed, it was like, okay, that's a good rotational piece. He's always been a good run stopper, but the rap on him was supposedly that he was never that good at pass rushing. He gets starts now that Marcus Davenport's been out, and he has taken advantage of every single time he's been on the field. And when Davenport comes back, who knows? I mean, you're going to continue to go with Muhammad, or are you going to try to put in Davenport in that starting spot? For me, I'm going with Muhammad. He's playing so well right now.
You talked about fantasy and potentially putting David Montgomery on the bench, which might be your smart move at this point. Jameson Williams, another at least on the stat sheet lackluster performance on Monday. We've talked previously that he still is making a big difference out there because obviously he's being marked. Obviously teams are looking at him for the big play. He took to social media this week and posted some things that I have no clue what they mean. If they could mean he's potentially upset with his lack of targets. Maybe they're just Jameson Williams posts that mean nothing. What have you made of his season so far? It's been a bit all over the place, but he's still shown that big play potential is there.
Yeah, I think it's really simple. And I know people are going to want to read into things because it's so much more fun to do it that way and be a conspiracy theorist. But I don't think those pictures on Instagram have anything to do with other than the fact that he can't play football for a week. And then, he's not being used. He's not a decoy. They're not putting him out there to just get teams to pay attention to him. They just are. They're trying to take away the big play. They know that this is what the Lions want to do. They want explosive 20-plus air yard plays, and JMO being out of that takes him away. He's just not a target because he's being doubled, sometimes even tripled. But the good thing is that's opening up, as we mentioned before, that's opening up opportunities for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta in the intermediate areas, and those guys are pretty good at yards after catch. So it's kind of it's not working. You have to think that at some point people are not going to try that anymore. They're going to try to put more focus on St. Brown, and then that'll open things up for JMO. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't think that he's a bust or they overpaid him or whatever. This is good. This is good that this is happening. It means he's good.
And we talked about Kelvin Shepherd, how great the start to his tenure has been. On the other side, John Morton as well, first year as the offensive coordinator. The offense, despite their stats once again being off the charts when you look at the rest of the league, feels like it's been a bit more inconsistent than we saw last year. I mean, you saw that on Monday. You saw that, in a lot of the Chiefs game. What have you made of Morton's first 7 games? And do you have any long-term concerns about this offense maybe not being able to move the ball at times the way they were the first half of last season?
No, I don't think I have any concerns. I mean, this is all circumstantial. They lost the best center in the game,
Yeah.
and then were really good starting left guard, and now they have 2 brand new guards. It just doesn't click overnight. It takes time, and they've gotten better every single week. And I think once we get towards playoff time, they should be a pretty fine-tuned machine. I just think right now you're seeing kind of the bad part of that is where just things are not working as well as you want them to. And as far as play call, I think it's all there. They're doing the same things that they did last year, run the ball to set up the pass. They're just not throwing in these crazy trick plays as much as you were used to seeing with Ben Johnson. But I think really this offense is pretty much the same. They just haven't been able to have that big production because they've got some new pieces that they're working on.
Mike, before the season started 7 weeks ago, we talked about how we both thought this team had, of course, NFC North championship potential and Super Bowl, NFC title potential. Through 7 weeks here, like I mentioned, good teams in the NFC. The Rams, the Eagles, the 49ers, even without Brock Purdy, have looked good at times. The Buccaneers, good teams. Not a lot of great teams. It feels like at this point headed into the bye week. I mean, the Lions are still the cream of the crop in the NFC, and it's hard to change any of those predictions we had before the season headed into the bye week at 5-2.
Yeah, I don't see anything changing. I still think that at the end of the day, the Lions are the number 1 seed. They're the NFC North champs, and I still think they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And that Chiefs loss didn't really move me much. Just
right.
Considering everything that happened in that game, I know why they lost, and it wasn't because they're a bad team. I think they're ready to go, man. I think with all these guys coming back, they're only going to get more healthy. If you can continue to maintain that healthiness when it's most important, I think they have a real chance to just make some big noise.
Your Sunday coming up might be a little more boring without the Lions, but man, it has got to feel good as you sit and watch the other games. You can watch them stress-free. Feel really good about where this Lions team is 5-2 headed into the final 10 games.
Absolutely. It's going to be good to not stress over these games, although there are some implications, as we mentioned earlier. But I think the more important thing for me this weekend personally is that the Pistons are back. And I can't wait to watch them. It's a good time for a bye week.
Absolutely. Watch some basketball, gear up for next week. Mike, we'll catch up with you before the Lions back in action at home next Sunday afternoon when they host the Minnesota Vikings.